everyone, and welcome to this recording for the Fem Group. I'm joined by Cheryl Frazer from Ovation Finance in Bristol, who's kindly agreed to do this session. It's her second time talking to the group, so thank you, Cheryl, for coming and talking to me again today.
All right, my pleasure.
So today we're going to be talking about boundaries, sort of saying no, setting limits, etc., and trying to make that successfully work, while we're juggling our work and home life and all of the stresses that come with all of that. So um, I guess, and it was something you approached us and said, this is something I'd really like to talk about. So when we say setting boundaries, what does that mean to you, Cheryl, and how's it shaped your approach to, your work and home life?
Yeah, I think with setting boundaries, it's knowing possibly when a situation won't be good for you and not putting yourself in that situation and putting you in a position where um, you're not going to be doing your best and or even they're not going to be getting the best from you. And likewise in work as well, it's knowing maybe when your plate is full and either that's when you've got to set boundaries on setting realistic expectations of when you can do things, not, yep, I'll do that and I'll do it now. But knowing when it's I can do that, but it won't be till next week, or right now it's not something I can do. Is there someone else who could help? So knowing your limits and knowing what situations are and aren't good for you as well, I'd say.
Yeah, and really interestingly, at our office, I talk about that often of sort of, it's recognizing it, but it's communicating that boundary or
Mm.
communicating when you can do things or not do things. I think that's where sometimes we fall down
Yeah,
as well.
I think that's fair. I think often when maybe sort of misunderstandings come about with things, it's all around communication. So, there's often an assumption, oh, can you help me with this? Yeah, it's suddenly top of someone's priority, but it's communicating, I can, but can we do it by then? Or I can't do it right now. Is it worth asking someone else? This person may be able to help you. And just communicating where you are to be more realistic with expectations of people.
And do you think that that's something that you've had to work on? One of the questions is around, could you share an example of a moment when you've had to set a boundary and that's had a positive impact on you, like mentally or your physical health? So I guess it sounds like it's something that you've had to develop and work on how you communicate those things in work as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's something that work-wise I've been working on, and I'll be honest, still working on. Um, and especially with, it's very easy to, want to help, and it's fair, and that's fair enough. You want to help someone, but it's knowing when it's going to put maybe what you're doing a little bit of a detriment if you need to get something done, and maybe you taking something on, but you can't give it the attention it needs. Whereas actually by saying I can do, but can I look at it tomorrow, even for example, it means that you give it more attention. So maybe you actually can, it takes maybe even less time because you can give it more attention, you can get it done, and not rushing. So there might even be less communication going forward because there's no questions coming back. So it's something I'm working on. I've been working on it. I'm better at it, but I'm still working on it in work. It's just one of those things. I think we're always evolving because it's natural to want to help people, but it's knowing when to say no. And no not being a negative word either. I think it's important. Because sometimes you just can't take something on and that's okay. It's important to know that not being able to do everything is okay. But it goes into everything, and it filters from work into personal life, into setting boundaries as well, because to be able to give yourself, you need to preserve yourself, really, don't you? So that you can be the best version when you need to be it. I know, for example, my personal life, about 6 months after my firstborn arrived, something, I mean, that was literally like a flick of a switch. And my boundaries just went in place like that. So no, you can't stay, we've got to be gone by this time. All because all these things, if they weren't respected, would have a negative impact on me. I'd be the one who would be dealing with the negative fallout from it. So I wasn't the one being the priority in that scenario. And for me, a switch just clicked, and I was like, no, I've got to prioritize myself. And that kind of falls into something that we'll probably touch on as well, is by putting boundaries in place for yourself, you're not being selfish. It's changing the mindset that you are prioritizing you. You know, whenever someone comes to ask you something, or can you do this for me, can you do a favor? I guess in a way, they're putting their priority first. And that's not a bad thing. That's just what they're doing. And it's knowing when that's great, but at this point, I need to make myself the priority. It's not being selfish, it's just knowing when you need to put yourself first and being okay with that, and kind of starting to change the mindset a little bit. So I think when you start to do that, that's when not only will you start to get the best out of yourself, but other people will start to get the best out of you too. Because when you are able to help with stuff, even if it's immediately, because you're like, you know, I can do that right now. Or when you can do, because you've got the mental capacity for it, for looking after yourself, you can give it that best version of yourself. So it's almost like a bit of a win-win. You know, you've got to take care of yourself, but it means that other people get the best version of you and they get more out of you almost.
So you mentioned about when your firstborn came, and that then your boundaries kind of came up. But is there another moment that you could maybe share that you feel like you've set a boundary, especially, you know, in the work environment, that's had a really positive impact for you?
Yeah, I think one of my things was knowing when to almost delegate a bit, as in come to me, but although I could do it, um, at these moments, my time needs to be spent on other stuff, but it's directing to people who can help. So it's putting the boundary going, don't take on everything. I shouldn't be taking on everything. There are other people who can help and want to help and can help, and just redirecting almost. So, you know, oh, do you mind helping with this? I can't right now have to speak to this person because they can do it too. And just kind of sort of redirecting it, you know, delegating slightly. And I find that was a big help because it meant that as part of my job, I wasn't spending a lot of my time sort of in the weeds with things. It meant it freed up my time to get on with the sort of bigger picture stuff, which I needed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I guess it's as well as, you know, making sure you know your team, really, and who does what and who can help. And if not, even asking people, oh, you know, someone's asked me this, is anyone able to help? And just putting it out there. Because someone might go, oh yeah, no, I can do that. I can help now. That's not an issue. And not being worried about asking other people to help with stuff. So it's okay, you're not the one, but you're still in a way helping that person by directing them to someone who can help them immediately, potentially.
And I think that there's a lot of things tied up. You know, one of the questions was around, you know, why do women sometimes struggle to say no
Mm.
more than men, and also a little bit about us kind of feeling guilt then, and, you know, fear of letting people down if we do say no. We've covered it a little bit, but why, you know, why do you think it is so much that, you know, I see that play out with in our firm, that, you know, we do want to be able to do it all, and therefore we do feel quite awkward saying no, or maybe we don't feel empowered enough to say no, or some people certainly might not, but more it's like, oh, I don't want to let, you know, I know I can do, you know, I feel like I can do this.
Mm. Yeah, I think I mean I think it's definitely true that more women struggle to say no, whether that's just a social thing, how we sort of developed over time. I don't know what it is, but I think it's fair to say women definitely struggle more to say no. Um, and I wonder if it's almost we have those kind of phrases ingrained in us where it's like, oh, you know, I'm just going to be a bit selfish, but or you know, I'll just be selfish in this one, and it's trying to like change that mindset, I'd say, um, which you sort of just mentioned, in that you're not being selfish, You're just going, I'm not the right person for this right now. I can be the right person for this at X time in the future when it works for you, or actually there's someone who can be that person right now. But I think as well with saying no and that feeling of disappointing someone, it's also trying to remember, like, when you go and ask for help from someone and you go, oh, do you mind helping me? Oh, no, I can't right now. Can I do it tomorrow? Or can you speak to this person? It's also knowing how you feel, because a lot of the time, chances are you're not disappointed. You're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Or yeah, I'll go speak to someone else. There will be times when you probably are disappointed. I think that's fair. But I think it's remembering that when you ask for stuff and people say, can't do that right now, or can you ask someone how you feel? And that often is not as bad as you maybe make out in your head when you have to say no to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, you probably, as the recipient, just kind of go, God, they must be really busy. And yeah, I could ask this person and I can communicate with this person. That's absolutely fine. It's what part being a team is, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I think we place quite unreal expectations on what we can deliver. Um, and I also think that is tied in with, this societal pressure that we have to give, 100% in absolutely everything in our lives, and that we should be
Mm.
able to juggle all of these things. There's a massive pressure.
Yeah.
And so how do you, I mean, yeah, basically, how do you feel about that? And also, how do we challenge that? Like, I think there is more and more challenge now. I think we're in a good space. I think there's some acceptance to that, but still in the very corporate world, there's just this, you know, we must still keep just doing more and more and more.
I think that's fair. I think it's the idea that you can do it all, which, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are people that absolutely smash it and they're phenomenal people. But I think it's accepting that you can do it all, but maybe you can't give everything 100%, 100% of the time. And that's okay. I think the notion of you can do it all is you give everything 100%, when actually it's, maybe if you split it almost into four areas, you've got work, personal, family, and friends. You know, you can't, it's a lot to give 100% to all of those four areas at the same time. I personally can't, being honest. And it's knowing that maybe, do you know what? I've got a lot of work right now, so I'm going to give a bit more energy to work, and I'll just reply to some friends another time. So actually, I'm maybe giving a bit more to work, but a little bit less to my friend time, because right now that's the balance I need. Or you're going through something and do you know what? I'm feeling a bit burnt out. I need to give a lot more to my personal self, but it means that maybe, one of the other areas I just need to ease, like work, I might just need to ease off a bit in that a little bit, do my job, but if there's stuff going on, I need to make sure I clock off when I need to clock off, sort of thing. And I think it's just a balancing act, I think it's fair to say. There's a lot out there. It's one of those things where you might see a lot of perfect lives online. I mean, I personally cannot get up at 5 a.m., do a workout, look after myself, get my little one up, go and do a good day's work, come back, cook something. Like, it's just not going to happen. With all the will in the world, it's just, I can't do it. If you can do it, it's amazing, you're amazing, but I can't. And it's just knowing that where I am right now, I can't give, you know, my personal care 100%. I'm not exercising every day. I've not got a wonderful skincare routine, but that's okay. It's okay. Right now, I just do what works for me. And the areas that are important to me, it means I can give a bit more in. That will change. There are times when I'm like, do you know what? I need a break. I just need a break right now. And I'll take a day, and that day is 100% me time. And that's the energy I need to get myself back. And it's just trying to find that balance of this thing of you can do it all. And it's not to say you can't, but to be able to give everything, every aspect of your life 100% it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's being okay that, do you know what, I can't quite do that. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the questions was, how do you personally redefine success when you are juggling multiple priorities? And that's sort of what we're talking about, isn't it? Giving
Mm.
yourself it's okay. And I'm really intrigued about what we deem as success as well. You know, success. And I think it changes also depending on what stage you are in your life and what other priorities you're juggling.
100%, 100%. I think it's, it's an evolving thing. And, you know, a while ago, I transitioned to becoming compliance officer. So to go through that, I gave a lot to the work aspects of my life to get the applications ready, to go through that whole process. Fortunately enough to the interview, but getting ready for it and all that lot. So to get to what I wanted with that goal, other areas had to just have less of my attention and effort. And that's okay because that's where I wanted to prioritize. Whereas other times I'll be like, do you know what? I want to prioritize me a little bit. So some other stuff is just gonna have a little bit less of my energy. And it's okay. And it's being okay with it. It doesn't mean you're not being the best version of yourself. You're just prioritizing the area that you need to give yourself the most to right now to meet what you want and what you want to
I-
do.
I'm quite intrigued as well, though, about how that,
Mm.
just out of interest as well, sometimes then, therefore, there's also extra layers of communication because
Mm.
if at work, it needs to be, but actually there's this other stuff going on that I really have to give priority to. But also, I imagine in your relationship as well, like where
Yeah.
you have to say, no, this is taking more priority right now. So I do think, it's not about just mentally yourself sorting out, because it's if we don't communicate that to our
Mm.
nearest and dearest or our work colleagues in some way that's suitable, then no one knows that we're thinking those things either.
100%, 100%. I think it's one of those things, a lot of stuff where there's misunderstandings or things, it always comes back to communication. So whether it's with your other half or friends, for example, when I was doing my son of 16 application, my husband knew what I was doing, how important it was to me. And it meant that, for a while, for a few evenings, I'm like, you're on your own there, sorry, bye. I gotta go do this because it's important. And just communicating what it is and what it's for, you know, there's no misunderstanding. And likewise at work as well, if you're not firing, it's, you know, it's just saying, having that maybe with trusted colleagues or people you specifically work with, where you might be like, guys, I'm really struggling at the moment. Like it could be you're going through something in your life, you're like, no, I'm so tired, I'm not sleeping. Can anyone just help me a little bit at the moment? And that way no one thinks you're, slacking or not doing your work. They just know that maybe you're going through something and you could just do with a bit of help. And I think it's that asking for help is really, really important. I think there's often a thing we're asking for help. People may struggle because they're worried it's a sign of it's a weakness, that, oh, it looks like I can't do my job, I've got to ask. But actually, when you think about it, whenever people are asking, can you help? Can you do this for me? They're also asking for help. So in a weird way, whether it's obvious or not, that's the point of having the team, is that you can help each other out. If people are coming to you for stuff, it's because they want help with things. It might not necessarily be like, I need help, but that's ultimately what's going on. So it's being able to communicate back when you need help. And it's not a weakness at all. It's, if anything, we should be a bit more open and celebrating, right? Who needs some help with something? What can we do? Because if you need help and you get the help, you get the better outcome. Stuff gets done, you feel better about it. You're not, drowning in stuff when you're not feeling your best. And things happen and it's a win-win, really. But
Yeah.
it's just, I appreciate this. Sometimes it's depending on your environment. I think environment is really important. And I fully understand that people might be in an environment where asking for help is a weakness. I totally get that. And that's something that hopefully is changing. I know there's a lot out there, especially around mental health and things like that, and about trying to encourage talking and hopefully stuff like that seeps more and more into the workplace of, do you know what, you need to just, if you need to ask for help, that's cool. Just means that something, it just means that something gets done. It means that, if you don't ask for help, something might not get done. But if you ask for help, it'll get done. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. We need to be more open and encouraging that help is a good thing and not a
Again, I think
weakness.
that comes down to that thing of though, um, almost it being seen, as you say, as a weakness or a failure.
Mm.
And again, redefining what success or failure in when you're up against it. Because let's face it, what we're really talking about is a scenario when you're up against it and you can't continue to juggle all these things and you need to, something's got to give.
Yeah,
And you need to claw back some of that time for the other thing that needs to take priority, you know.
yeah, definitely. I think ultimately it's, let's say you've got 5 things to do. Two are going to take up a lot of your time, but you've maybe got 3 smaller things. By asking for help with maybe those 3 smaller things, it means that all 5 things get done. So ultimately, it's a good outcome. And I think it's trying to remember that just because you may not have had the capacity at the time to do it all, ultimately, the outcome is what everyone wants, is that something gets, this whatever it is gets done. And it's trying to remember that you're, especially in a team, you're all working towards the same goal. And, you know, how stuff gets done, at the end of the day, I don't think anyone really cares, you
No,
know.
it's really interesting though, because everyone's brains work differently though, don't they? So
Yeah.
I've got a colleague who like is great taking stuff off of me, okay,
Mm,
helping, can delegate, that's fantastic. She does things so quick that they end up back on my list like really, really quickly. So actually I could have gotten rid of that task for like a day, but then the follow-up then afterwards is back on my
on your list,
agenda.
yeah.
And we've had long conversations about the fact that actually, just because of the way her brain works, she
Mm,
prioritizes things in a slightly different way. So she would just want to get it done, and she's particularly fast at getting it done, which is
mm.
great. But then actually, don't just give it straight back to me because I'm not moved on at all, like mentally myself with
Yeah.
how my list is looking. So we've talked about, for example, she just giving me an update once a week rather than an update every day, because I can just have a nice succinct summary of what's happened during the week rather than like
Mm.
have to, add to my list because I've got to read through all of these things. So I think it is about just also communicating. And again, that communication piece, being understanding, trying to understand how one another work, and supporting one another.
Definitely. I think again, like you touch on it, does it? It always comes back to that communication of I think we can maybe fall into habits of assuming we know what works well for someone, like work, personal life, everything like that, assuming, oh, they'll like it if I do it that way, when actually part of the thing is, you know, asking for help and saying what you'd like from it as well. Like for example, you'll think, oh, do you mind taking this? But give me an update on it next week. I don't need to worry about it till then, sort of thing. And it's just ultimately everything always comes back to that communication piece, doesn't it? So that you're on the same wavelength, aren't you? You understand each other, you know what each other want, so that when you're doing what you can to help, you know that it's actually what that person is looking for as well.
I think also some of it is like with a client relationship, we quite often talk about like under promising, under delivering, right? Because that's
Mm,
what they want. You wouldn't set a deadline and then miss the deadline. You want to make it before the deadline so that you've kind of
yeah.
impressed them and stuff. And because that's the external facing thing that most of us in finance want to do, because that's how we keep our clients happy, you kind of like unraveling, like you kind of, well, that's
Mm,
our default. That's our default, right? That we're going to want to get it done before the deadline. We're going to get it, want it, communicated in a speedy, quick, exact way. But it's a bit of a reverse when you kind of go, actually, I don't need this for this long, or I'm giving, sometimes actually say to me, email, there's nothing urgent about this, right? But
mm,
that sometimes just still, we're on default mode of kind of like how we're going to deliver these things. So
yeah.
it's really strange.
I think that's fair. Like, I think it's it comes down to that, nature of, you know, wanting to please people in a way, isn't it? You often want to do a good job for someone, you want to make someone happy, please them. And, you know, whilst getting on doing something, it's not a bad thing, but it is just knowing like actually what does that person want?
Mm.
And like you said, we're so used to with clients, we, always trying to please in that sense, the overpromise, under deliver. But like you said, it's flicking a switch when it's internal, you can almost, in a sense, be much more open and realistic about deadlines and goals. And yeah, okay, I know that probably takes 2 days, but right now I need 4 days.
Yeah.
Or in your case, going, I know it's a quick one, but I don't need it till next week. And I don't even want to hear about it till next week.
Don't
So
tell
just
me. Don't tell me. My brain can't cope with it.
put
Yeah.
it on the list, but it's not a priority. And
Yeah.
just like, and just, I guess it's all part of that learning how people work as well, isn't it? We all work different ways, um, and learning what people need. And actually, I guess almost by learning what people need, it will even takes the pressure off you a bit as well, because we
Definitely.
can we can have an instinct that, oh, I want to like impress, I want to perform well. And you're almost putting extra pressure on yourself to perform in a way that's not actually needed. So you're almost, again, adding that extra layer of pressure on when you're already doing a lot. And maybe it means that you're overloading yourself a little bit, when in reality, you don't need to be putting that extra pressure on you.
Yeah. So that leads me quite nicely on because I want to talk a little bit about limits and stuff like that. So
Mm.
how do you now, I guess, recognize yourself and what could you share with people that is like, so you can recognize when you're nearing your limit? And I guess what are your go-to kind of strategies for like resetting that if you recognize that?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a part of almost knowing yourself a little bit and learning yourself. So whether it's things like your fuse starts to get a little bit thin, maybe you're getting a bit blunt with some stuff, maybe you're not able to concentrate as much. Maybe you're someone who like pings really good at that, and you're just not quite pinging. So it's kind of really learning, putting in time to learn about you and what your kind of warning signs are when you might be starting to get to a limit. Um, and I think it's being okay with then just sort of having a break. Like if you're at a point you're like, oh, I just can't concentrate, have a break. A quarter of an hour, have a cup of tea, sit outside if it's nice, just have the moment, because chances are by going and just taking that little bit of time and resetting means that you can then come back and be like, right, okay, I can focus for a bit now, rather than sitting at your desk for 2 hours and not really getting anything done because it's just not happening up here. You just need a break. So I think it's knowing those sort of little warning signs where, okay, I need to just step away for a moment. I mean, we should be having regular breaks anyway, when you're working, but knowing when to go, do you know what? It's actually better for me to just stop, walk away for a bit, have a moment, just refresh, and then come back and start again. And chances are you'll get so much more out of it than being like, no, I just got to push through and just sitting there and not really getting much done. But even then, I think, things build up, especially in busy periods where it's at your end. And recognizing, do you know what, I think I need a break now, and actually taking the break. If you've got a load of work, it ain't going anywhere. Like taking a day off, it's still going to be there when you get back. Nothing's going to happen. So I think recognizing when you are starting to hit a limit, and actually you need more than just having a quiet cup of tea and going, do you know what, I think I need a day off. And take the day, take it. We all work, we're entitled to holiday. Take the day off, use it for yourself, refresh, recharge, and then you can come back and actually you'll probably get more done then because of it, you know.
I think it's early recognition, isn't it? Because
Mm,
I know from my experience that I haven't been that great at that early recognition. And then I've gone like way over that. And then it takes you a lot longer to get back from that because you've got to have
mm.
a week off. or you've got to give yourself, there's not just that I'm going to get up from my desk moment. It's literally like, I'm,
I
you've
can't get out of
gone,
bed sort of thing.
yeah, yeah, or just in that mode. And I mean, I'll give an example. I know when I do, I start double booking. This is the thing that happens with me, is that I
Okay.
forget that I've got something already on socially that day. So my work diary is super organized. But then,
Yeah.
what I'll do, it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to London that day. That's fine. I'm going to London for a work thing. But then I'll also have added something in, like that I was meant to do that evening, and I have to disappoint someone, or
Right,
I
okay,
have to
yeah.
disappoint them because I can't do that thing as well. And then I can see that pattern has appeared over multiple years, where you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then I've got to dial back from that because I'm not that type of person. I don't really want to feel out of control in that way. And that makes me feel kind of like panicked about things. And then I'm not really delivering what I need to deliver because you're not, as you say, firing on all cylinders, or all of that language that we use as
No, I think that's fair. I know with me, I start forgetting things. If I haven't written it down, I forget it. Just lots of little things. I know when I'm starting to hit some mental points, I just start forgetting. I'll be asked to do something and I'll forget it.
yeah.
Not written down, I just start forgetting. So, but it's something that I don't know, like you might not know it straight away. It's through actually almost pausing to reflect on yourself and realize, okay, that's my thing. That's how I know when my brain's starting to hit a limit, that I need to give myself some time to just mentally recharge. Because like you said, you don't want to get to the point where you need to like take a week off when it's not like a nice planned week that you wanted to do. It's a week because you have to do it. And so I think, you know, even if you're not going through it at the moment, maybe just taking that time to just think, actually, what are my warning signs? And then you can know when you're heading into it, right? Okay, I need to start taking some little breaks. Maybe I need to take a day and just stop refresh. And actually, that might also be a point where you ask for help as well.
Yeah, it's great minds, because that's what I was about to say. I think if there's any takeaway from this conversation,
Mm,
it's everyone sitting there and thinking, what is it that I can reflect on in the past that has been trigger signs or warning signs that I know that I'm not quite looking after myself well enough to be able to do all of these things as well as I would like to do, and that I
mm.
either need to ask for help, or I need to take the time, and I need to just carve out the time, you know. And one of the things that's kind of been playing in my mind, as we've been talking as well, Cheryl, is this challenge I think that faces women as well when they are juggling, trying to work reduced hours. Because I think that the challenge I've got with it, I don't work reduced hours because I haven't got children, but I work 4 days a week, so that I can prioritize other things that I would like to do, to try and balance this work and everything like that. What I find is that day doesn't necessarily fill me with loads of replenishing stuff. It's just stuff that I have to
Mm.
do, life admin, crap that otherwise you would do on a Saturday. It's never
Yeah,
that day that you take out to go and rejuvenate, and I don't find that is what that day is. Sometimes it will be once a month I might get to do that, but actually what we're asking is women who are juggling that, we've got this extra, well, you're not working full time, so there's this extra societal, I think there's this societal pressure that then we should still be doing more.
100%, 100%. So I think I think it's especially tricky when you do 4 days. So myself, I work 4 days a week. I have a day off in the week with my little boy. And I adore it. We have a wonderful day, but I'm not refreshed by the end of it. I'm knackered, absolutely knackered. I love it, but I'm knackered. But I think that, and you talk about doing more, the 5 into 4 is a real I think it's a bit of a sticky one because you find you still end up doing 5 days and 4 days often. And I know that's not intentional. And especially some companies, they don't want you to be doing that. But it's almost because it's just that one day. It's
There's not big adjustments, is
it's
there? You've
not
not made
such
enough of an adjustment. Yeah.
yeah to do that. And I think that's very fair. And the thing like, oh, really not part-time. Like, you're fine, you've got a day off, you'll be refreshed. And it's like, I know I work part-time, but on that day off, I highly doubt anyone who does work part-time is just that chilling. The chance they have that day because they need to do other stuff in their personal life, where there just isn't the time. Because I think that's a real thing at the moment, especially with working women, is time. Um, Time is not our friend, I think, when trying to fit everything into the day and still find time to, have some fun and take care of yourself as well. I think that's
Yeah,
fair
go for
enough.
that 5 a.m. workout that some
Workout, yeah.
lunatic says that you can do. Yes, challenging.
I think it's fair. I mean, for me personally, I think my biggest challenge is 100% is time, is trying to find time to do stuff. But I think as well, it falls back onto, we talked about at the very beginning, is doing it all and giving everything 100%. For me personally, there just isn't time for it. There just isn't. I don't care what anyone on social media tells me about having the same hours a day as everyone else. It doesn't matter,
No,
you know.
and I think the thing that comes to my mind is that I can try and do. So I've been having some conversations with clients about the fact that I can't possibly, keep doing everything that I'm
Mm.
doing. Um, but you have been, because I have been, it's
Mm.
harder to like pull back from it.
Yeah.
So, because what we tend to do is like I'm going to prove
Mm.
that I can do these reduced hours and that I can still,
Mm.
'cause that's the kind of expectation is, okay, well, we'll see how that, that's what you want to do. We'll see how it all works. So you go in going, I'm going to work like super hard because I really want to make this work. Then you kind of made a rod for your own back because
Yeah.
kind of done all of it in that time, and pulling back is even harder.
I think that's fair. I completely agree. I think you go into it being like, I'm sure I've gone part-time, it's fine, I can still do it all. You're not going to see an impact. It's good for everyone still, it's not an issue. But then, like you said, also it's like you put in loads of effort so you could do it all. And then, after, I don't know what, 3, 6 months, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so tired, I
Yeah.
can't do it all.
Yeah. And how am I going to communicate this and say, oh, I can't keep doing this, and
Yeah.
prioritize that? So I think, listen, we've talked about, loads of stuff. I think
Mm.
I love the takeaway of just like, no, just figure out, even if you're not in that space now, what are your trigger points? What are your warning signs? Hang on, I'm going to have it. Hang on, Gretchen, you've double booked, which by the way, I did for tomorrow. So that might be quite an interesting warning sign. But
Mm.
yeah, you need to take a step back, slow down, try and just prioritize things a bit better, and delegate as we've talked about. Anything else
100%.
kind of as a final takeaway you want to add that you'd thought about?
I think it's just being kind to yourself. I think that's my main sort of hopefully the main people might get as a good takeaway from that is to not be kind for yourself. You may think you have to do it all and that you should be able to do it all. And if you can't, that's okay. I don't think a lot of people can, to be honest. I think a lot of people do it all, but it doesn't mean that everything gets 100% of the time. Be kind to yourself, take care of yourself. I think to be able to give the best version of yourself, you need to make sure you preserve and are the best version. And you can only do that by taking care of yourself and putting yourself first at times and finding a way to change that mindset that it's okay. You're not being selfish. Someone is always a priority, but in this moment, you're choosing to make it yourself. And that's totally fine. And we shouldn't feel guilty about it at all.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's been really good to talk to you again today and record
Yeah,
it.
you too,
Hopefully,
Gretchen.
we'll get it out there to everyone, and I know there'll be some great, key things that people will take away. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you for having me again.